A spiritual good morning to one and all on Saturday, 27th August 2022, where Mummy and I are here to record a short recap video for today's Bhagavad Gita study session.
Radha Radha, everybody.
So we started off today, in fact, with a small segment of a video by Swamiji, which we'll actually be providing in the notes and also through cards at the end of this video. What we did is to really build on as add-on and supplementary material to the previous session's chapter 6, verse 5. Very, very important verse. And so we then moved ahead to our quiz questions. And just looking at the last one, which is to use the word mind to describe what is meant by the phrase, use the mind to elevate the self, we saw the answer as use the higher mind to elevate the lower mind. And so with that as context, it led us into our supplementary material, which, as I mentioned, is a video we'll share through the card at the end of this video and as a link as well. We heard from Mummy 4 different verses that are from this famous spiritual analogy that appears in the Kathopanishad. So we heard those 4 shlokas and then had a very engaging exercise to understand more about what that spiritual analogy is. Mummy, I'll ask you to go ahead and recite the verse and tell us if there are any important Sanskrit words you would like us to take away. Again, chapter 6, verse 5.
Yes, chapter 6, verse 5, very, very important and very interesting verse. So we are trying to understand it thoroughly. Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu atmaiva ripuratmanah. So now 2 very important words. One is uddharet. Uddharet means elevate. Elevate means bring it upwards. And then the other important word is avasadayet. Avasadayet means degrade. So what happens usually when we run after our senses only, when the mind runs after only the senses, it degrades itself because it is running towards these pleasures of the material world. Whereas Krishna is teaching us that we have to elevate our mind. We have to elevate our mind. How? By the knowledge of the self. Once we understand that we are the soul, not the body, and soul is a fragment of the ocean of bliss, that is Paramatma, and that soul will get then happiness only because it is divine in nature. It will get happiness from the divine subject. And what is that divine subject? That is God. And how can we get bliss? By attaching our mind to God. So, Gagan, you can take it over.
Yeah, thank you, Mummy. I'll go back to the slides and give a tiny preview. As I said, in a separate video, everybody can follow. This is from, connection to the commentary of chapter 6, verse 5, going back to chapter 3, verse 43, where, as we mentioned, the Kathopanishad has several verses that help us understand a spiritual analogy. So we gave a little bit of a test or a quiz here, but through an engaging walkthrough for everybody, there's an image that comes up on the next slide that you see over here and will be available in the document that is sent out. Lots of components, we call it in quotes, components to that picture. And also an arrow, a lot of different question marks, lots of items to be filled out here. And so we would like you to go back and revisit the entire exercise as these answers were unveiled on the screen through the discussion one by one. Again, everything is in connection to that first segment we covered from Swamiji's video clip, and then the rest of the Kathopanishad shlokas. All that is described at length in the separate video, Chariots and Spirituality. So that is going to be homework, if you want to call it, for everybody for revisiting the material from today's session. So again, the answers, we won't show them in this video. Go ahead and please practice, get them revised, and that'll help you understand what we covered in class. And as Mummy said about directing the soul towards God and spirituality. So going in the right direction and how one can uddhared, elevate, versus avasadayet, degrade. So how we can use the mind as our friend versus our enemy to be elevated in the spiritual direction.
So basically, this is the parable of the chariot, Rath Kalpana, and chariot is our body, horses are the five senses, charioteer is the intellect, and the passenger that is residing in the body, the soul. Now, what is happening here? The soul is sleeping, and that's why the horses are going in different directions, because they are just the senses, and senses are running into the material world. So passenger who is sleeping, it's in the material bound state. So what happens? This bewildered soul, it is not directing the intellect in the proper direction. Now, when we feed the intellect with good wisdom from scriptures and knowledge from scriptures and from God realized saints, then the intellect knows how to control the mind and how to control the senses. And once the soul wakes up, that means it is the higher nature, and then it takes a proactive role. So then it can guide the intellect in the right direction. So now the intellect will govern the lower nature, that is mind and senses. Now once that is done, the chariot will start moving in the right direction, in the direction of eternal welfare. And so the soul should be awakened through the right knowledge from the intellect, and then the soul can guide our chariot in this world in the right way, so that we can move up the path of spirituality. Hope that helps, and you all can continue with the exercise. Do revise, do go through the video, and we'll again come back and discuss it in more detail.
Yes, absolutely. And so again, if you just follow the cards, probably in this side, if I point correctly, but in one of the four directions, you'll find a card to that video, Chariots and Spirituality, coming up towards the end of this video. So please do follow that. Next week, Saturday, 3rd September 2022, we will not be having any class. And that is with the hope that as many of you will be attending the final USA retreat in the Dallas area with Swamiji. So we encourage you to make use of the US Labor Day weekend to attend that retreat and make the most of your time there. We shall therefore meet on Saturday, 10th September 2022. Till then, happy learning and spiritual progress. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.